I am at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a whole museum celebrating perhaps the most famous artist who called this region home, a few blocks away from the historic Santa Fe Plaza. This museum houses the largest collection of Georgia O'Keeffe's artwork and personal items, and it opened 11 years after her death in 1986. While the museum is not huge, it covers her whole career and has some fantastic pieces on display. Georgia O'Keeffe was born in Wisconsin and was formally educated in art and taught art in several states up until the 19-teens. It was during this time in about 1915 while teaching at Columbia College that she developed a style that is considered as total abstraction. She put aside most of her formal training to produce these very abstract works full of energy and emotion. They're not producing an accurate visual appearance of the world, but rather they focus on some specific subject, and she would choose correlating colors that convey meaning. She made this abstract sculpture in 1916. It's clear that even during this time period, that her subjects were very often flowers, like the purple petunia on the left, but some were a bit different and had anatomical or even sexual connotations. There's a bleeding heart on the right. There's an abstraction white rose from 1927, painted during the time she lived in New York City with her wealthy art dealer and photographer husband, Alfred Stieglitz. By the 1920s, much because of Stieglitz's support and exhibitions of her work, she was recognized as one of America's most important artists. That is Belladonna from 1939, a really beautiful close-up of flowers. These are some more pieces from the time period when she was developing her own abstract style. Many of these works were highly experimentational with the composition, scale, and varying degree of abstraction. That's a bit of a different one on the left. It's from 1914 and it seems to be pointillist. And on the right is a church bell based off one in Ward, Colorado. She first started visiting the western United States in the 19-teens, and by the 1920s was spending increasing amounts of time out here. Those are some alligator pear still lifes from the 1920s. Fruits and vegetables were sometimes subjects in her paintings. This is a skunk cabbage from 1922. On the right is the white bird of paradise from 1939. There's a hibiscus plant from 1939. This was part of a series of paintings commissioned by the Dole Pineapple Company for promotional material. That is Cloud 5, the yellow horizon, and clouds from the 1960s. This is tan, orange, yellow, and lavender, more of an experimental color composition that looks really cool. This is a painting of Mount Fuji from 1960. She did an around-the-world tour during this time. She began in Japan and stopped in Hong Kong, India, and Nepal. She became very fascinated by Asia and read lots of books on Buddhism. This is Misty, a memory from 1957. She took a 3-month trip to Peru the year before, and she created this rendition of the Misty volcano based off postcards she collected while there. This is another piece inspired by the trip, a depiction of Machu Picchu. Those are two aerial paintings of rivers. That is an island with clouds. Like the rivers, this one is painted from an interesting aerial angle. That is Petunia number 2 from 1924. I like the colors on this one. That's A Tree Without Limbs from 1920. The Autumn Trees, or the Maple, from 1924. Apparently trees of the East Coast were a common theme in the early 20s. That's A Piece of Wood from 1942. This one is called The Barns of Lake George from 1926. While she lived in New York City, she did go upstate to Lake George and made several scenes there. This is The City Night, which she made in the 1970s. While living in New York, she did make some city skyscraper paintings. This one is unusual because she made it nearly 50 years after she did that series. This is a sketch she did for her Manhattan painting in 1932. That's a really cool one which shows the new Rockefeller Center and some other buildings, and I have seen it at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. By the end of the Roaring 20s, O'Keeffe began traveling to New Mexico regularly. She would usually stay at the artist colony of Taos. Then she soon started spending at least a part of every year here in the land of enchantment. She had some mental health struggles in the mid-1930s, but she was still highly successful and sought after. This allowed her to purchase the land and start Ghost Ranch near Abiquiu. This museum does own the property now and gives tours of it, not during winter like it is now, but that is definitely something I want to do sometime. This gallery showcases her many incredible paintings she did at Ghost Ranch and based off the beautiful and unique landscapes here in northern New Mexico. While she traveled a lot until she got really old, O'Keeffe would end up spending the rest of her days around here. That is the Black Place in gray and pink, painted in 1949. Those are the Purple Hills at Ghost Ranch from 1934. Many of the locations portrayed in these paintings are real features that are at her Ghost Ranch property and can still be recognized there today. Those are red and yellow cliffs. The mesas around here are very colorful, and O'Keeffe certainly appreciated that. There's a black cross with red sky, presumably made on one of her first visits to Taos in 1929. That is an awesome painting. There's a church steeple on a classic adobe church from the 1930s. This one is called My Last Door. The black square is in fact a door, and it's a very abstract reference to the black door on her Ghost Ranch home. This one from 1952 is called Mesa and Road East. The roads and landscapes around here really do look like this. That's Gerald's Tree 1 from 1937. There's a Ghost Ranch landscape, one of the incredible views from her front yard. That's the patio door of the Ghost Ranch home with a green leaf falling. Some of her most interesting and eerie works are those of animal skulls which you would find and collect in the desert. The painting is focused on the skull of a horned creature, most likely a ram, and the display here is cool because they have a real ram skull which she may have collected, and some sculpture casts she did of horns. That one is called Ram's Head, Blue Morning Glory from 1938. And there's a real ram scalp and horns right next to it. I really like the comparison they do here, that's very clever. And there's a horse's skull with a white rose from 1931. And on the left is thigh bone on black strip, made in 1930. And there's a real horse skull and thigh bones directly underneath them. In the last little room, they have Above the Clouds 1 from 1962, a very intriguing viewpoint of the clouds inspired from an airplane window. The lighting in this room is very cool, very much enhances the paintings. She did make a giant mural version of this painting that's at the Art Institute of Chicago. Also as part of the Seeing Beyond series, they have Blue A from 1959. There's Black Hollyhock and Blue Larkspur from 1930. Really interesting color contrast between the flowers in that one. This is the Beyond from 1972. The placard on this one encourages taking lots of time to look at it because the longer you stare at it, the more details you're gonna notice. By the way, some of the guards here are kinda D-holes. So that was the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, an amazing collection of one of America's greatest artists and one very interesting and individualistic woman. Please check out my other Santa Fe videos, and thanks for watching.